Welcome back to Truth Bombs, where we expose the lies, betrayals, and shocking secrets that people thought they'd never have to face. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a story that will make you question everything you think you know about the person sleeping next to you. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from around the world. I love hearing from our Truth Bombs family. And if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we drop explosive truth stories like this one every week. Today's story is called The Mirror's Edge, and it's about Jackson Stewart, a graphic designer who thought he'd found the woman of his dreams. Lola Martinez seemed perfect, beautiful, ambitious, and understanding about his need for independence. There was just one problem. Her job required constant travel, leaving Jackson missing her terribly during those long business trips. It all started when Jackson decided to surprise Lola at her office with lunch. But what he discovered there would lead him down a rabbit hole of deception so twisted, so carefully orchestrated, that when the truth finally came out, it would shatter everything he believed about love, trust, and the people closest to him. You think you've heard stories about cheating before? Trust me, you haven't heard anything like this. So buckle up, Truth Bombs family, because this one is going to leave you questioning every relationship you've ever had. Let's dive in. The Mirror's Edge. I should have known something was wrong when Lola started keeping her phone face down during dinner. My name is Jackson Stewart, and for 8 months I thought I'd found the woman I wanted to marry. Lola Martinez was everything I'd been looking for. Brilliant, funny, ambitious in her marketing career, and somehow still willing to put up with my obsession with vintage motorcycles and terrible horror movies. She traveled frequently for work, client meetings in different cities, she'd explained, which meant our relationship had developed in intense bursts between her trips. I hate being away so much, she'd say, curled against me on Sunday mornings. But this promotion depends on landing these big accounts. I understood. I respected her ambition, and when she was gone I missed her terribly, which only made our reunions more passionate. What I didn't understand was why she never wanted me to drive her to the airport. The company car service is easier, she'd insist. Besides, you hate airport traffic. She wasn't wrong, but something about it nagged at me. Lola was the type who usually wanted help with everything, opening jars, reaching high shelves, even pumping gas when it was cold. But when it came to her travel, she became fiercely independent. The first real red flag came on a Tuesday in March. I decided to surprise her at lunch, showing up at Morrison & Associates with takeout from that Thai place she loved. The receptionist, a friendly woman named Janet, who'd chatted with me during my previous visits, looked confused when I mentioned Lola's name. Lola Martinez? Janet frowned, checking her computer. I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name working here. My blood went cold. Marketing department? About 5'6", dark hair, been here for 3 years? I've been the receptionist here for 5 years, Janet said gently. I know everyone in marketing. There's no Lola Martinez. I stood there holding bags of pad thai, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. There had to be an explanation. Maybe she worked for a different Morrison & Associates. Maybe she'd mentioned a different company name and I'd misheard. But as I walked back to my car, I realized I'd never actually seen her business cards. I'd never called her office directly. Every time I'd tried to reach her during work hours, I'd called her cell phone. That evening, I waited until Lola returned from her 3-day client trip to Portland. How was work today? I asked casually as she unpacked her suitcase. Crazy busy, she replied without missing a beat. We're launching a new campaign for the tech startup I told you about, Morrison's biggest account this year. I watched her face carefully. No tells, no hesitation. Either she was telling the truth, or she was an incredibly good liar. Janet at the front desk said to tell you hi, I said. Oh, Janet's so sweet, Lola replied, hanging up a blouse I'd never seen before. Did you stop by the office? The response was so natural, so immediate, that I started to doubt what I'd experienced. Maybe I'd gone to the wrong building. Maybe there were multiple Morrison & Associates in the city. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. Lola's work trips followed an odd pattern, always 3 to 4 days. always to cities that were exactly a half-day's drive away, never anywhere that required flying. And she always returned with perfect knowledge of local restaurants and attractions, as if she'd spent significant time in these places before. When she mentioned her Portland client dinner at Le Pigeon, I looked it up. The restaurant had been closed for renovations during her supposed visit. I felt sick making the call, but I hired a private investigator named Rebecca Torres. I think my girlfriend might be lying about her job, I explained, hating how paranoid I sounded. Maybe other things too. Rebecca was professional but direct. Infidelity cases are more common than you'd think. What specifically concerns you? I told her about the office, the travel patterns, the small inconsistencies that had been accumulating like splinters under my skin. I'll need some basic information, Rebecca said. Full name, address, vehicle description, photos if you have them. Giving her Lola's information felt like a betrayal, but the alternative, continuing to live with mounting suspicions, felt worse. 3 days later, Rebecca called with preliminary findings. Jackson, we need to meet in person. There's something you need to see. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Rebecca spread a manila folder across the table, her expression carefully neutral. Your girlfriend's real name is Lola Martinez, and she does live at the address you provided. But Jackson, Rebecca paused, studying my face. She's not traveling for work. She's been staying at a second apartment across town, and she's not staying there alone. My hands went numb. Another man? Yes. And Jackson, there's something else, something unusual. Rebecca pulled out a photograph, a surveillance shot taken with a telephoto lens. It showed Lola walking hand in hand with a man outside a restaurant. The man looked exactly like me. Not similar, not close, exactly like me, down to the scar above my left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident, and the way I held my left shoulder slightly higher than my right. That's impossible, I whispered. Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. Do you have any siblings, Jackson? Particularly a twin brother. The world tilted sideways. No, I mean yes, but... I stared at the photograph, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. I have an identical twin brother, but we haven't spoken in 6 years. We had a falling out over... I trailed off, remembering. Over a woman, actually. We both dated the same girl in college without knowing it. When we found out, it destroyed our relationship. What's your brother's name? Cody Stewart. I looked up at Rebecca. You think Lola is dating both of us? I think that's exactly what's happening. Rebecca pulled out another photograph, this one showing Lola kissing the man who looked like me. This was taken yesterday while you thought she was in Sacramento for work. I felt physically ill. How is this possible? How could she not know we're brothers? Different last names? No, we're both Stewart. I stopped, thinking. We live in the same city, but we move in completely different circles. He's a software engineer, works in tech. I'm a graphic designer, mostly freelance. We don't have mutual friends anymore. We don't go to the same places. Have you ever mentioned having a twin brother? I thought back through 8 months of conversations with Lola. Maybe in passing, early on. But we never talk about family much. Her parents are dead, and I don't talk about Cody. Rebecca leaned forward. Jackson, I think your girlfriend has been deliberately targeting you and your brother. The travel schedule, the separate apartments, the way she's managed to keep your lives completely compartmentalized. This takes planning. This isn't accidental. But how would she even know about Cody? How would she find both of us? Social media, mutual acquaintances, dating apps? If she's determined enough? Rebecca shrugged. The question is, what do you want to do about it? I stared at the photograph spread across the table, my entire relationship recontextualizing itself in real time. Every tender moment, every declaration of love, every plan we'd made for the future. All of it had been a lie, worse than a lie, a deliberate manipulation designed to pit me against my own brother without either of us knowing. I need to see Cody, I said finally. We need to talk. I can arrange that, but Jackson, there's something else you should know. Rebecca hesitated. Based on the surveillance, I believe she's been intimate with both of you. You should both get tested for STDs, and you should consider the emotional impact this revelation might have on your brother. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times Lola had returned from her work trips slightly different. New stories, new inside jokes I didn't understand, subtle changes in her preferences or habits. I'd attributed it to the stress of travel, to her evolving as a person. Now I realized she'd been returning with pieces of a life she was living with my brother. The next morning, Rebecca called with Cody's contact information and workplace address. He works at TechFlow Solutions downtown, she said. I've confirmed he's been dating someone named Lola Martinez for approximately 8 months. He believes she works in marketing and travels frequently for work. The parallels were so exact, they made me dizzy. Lola had used the same cover story, the same lies, probably even the same explanations for her absences. We were living parallel lives, completely unaware of each other's existence in her world. I spent the day crafting and deleting text messages to Cody. What do you say to the brother you haven't spoken to in 6 years? How do you explain that you need to meet because you've both been devastated by the same woman? Finally, I settled on something simple. Cody, this is Jackson. I know we haven't talked, but I need to see you. It's urgent. Something has happened that affects both of us. He responded within an hour. Jackson, what's wrong? Are you okay? I'm fine, but it's complicated. Can we meet for coffee today if possible? Sure, Starbucks on 5th Street at 6? Seeing Cody again was like looking into a funhouse mirror of my own life. 6 years had changed us both, but we were still unmistakably identical. Same height, same build, same nervous habit of running our hands through our hair when we were stressed. The main difference was his clothing, button-down shirts and slacks instead of my jeans and vintage t-shirts. Professional versus creative. The paths we'd taken after our falling out. You look good, Cody said awkwardly as we sat down with our coffee. It's been a long time. Too long, I agreed. Cody, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly, even if it sounds crazy. He frowned. Okay. Are you dating someone named Lola Martinez? The color drained from Cody's face. How do you know about Lola? Because I'm dating her too. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Cody's coffee cup remained halfway to his lips, suspended in disbelief. That's impossible, he said finally. I've been with Lola for 8 months. We're talking about moving in together. 8 months, I repeated. Since July? Since July, he confirmed, his voice growing strained. Jackson, what the hell is going on? I pulled out the photographs Rebecca had given me, spreading them across the small table. Cody stared at the images of himself with Lola, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and dawning horror. She's been playing us against each other, I said, the whole time. Her work travel. She's been going back and forth between us. Cody picked up one of the photos, his hands shaking slightly. But she knows things about me. Personal things. We've talked about everything. My job, my friends, my dreams. She can't be faking that level of intimacy. She's not faking it. She's compartmentalizing it. I leaned forward. Think about it, Cody. Has she ever mentioned having a boyfriend before you? Has she ever slipped up and called you by the wrong name? Cody's silence was answer enough. She told me the same cover story she told you, I continued. Marketing job, frequent travel, promotion dependent on landing big clients. I bet she even uses the same restaurants and hotels in each city she visits. The Marriott downtown, Cody said quietly. She always stays at the Marriott when she's traveling. That's where she goes when she's with me too, except she's not traveling, Cody. She's 20 minutes away, in another apartment, living another version of the same life. We sat in silence processing the magnitude of Lola's deception. This wasn't a simple case of cheating. It was an elaborate, sustained psychological manipulation that had lasted 8 months. Why? Cody asked finally. Why would someone do this? I don't know. Maybe she couldn't choose between us. Maybe she liked the power of controlling both relationships. Maybe, I stopped, considering. Maybe she wanted revenge. Revenge for what? For what happened in college. The last woman we both dated, Emma Rodriguez. Remember how that ended? Cody's face darkened. Emma chose you. She said she couldn't handle dating twins, that it was too confusing, too complicated, but she chose you. And it destroyed our relationship. We blamed each other instead of recognizing that Emma was the one who'd been dishonest. I met Cody's eyes. What if Lola knew about that? What if this is payback? That's insane. Is it? Think about the level of planning this required. She had to research both of us, find ways to meet us separately, maintain completely different social circles, keep track of different stories and timelines. This isn't casual cheating, Cody, this is warfare. Cody was quiet for a long time, staring at the photographs. What do we do now? We confront her. Together. I don't know if I can handle seeing her again, knowing what I know now. You can handle it, I said. Because we're going to handle it together. Like we should have done 6 years ago. That evening, we developed our plan. Rebecca had provided Lola's second apartment address, the one where she stayed when she was supposedly traveling for work. According to her schedule, she was currently on a 4-day client meeting in Portland, which meant she was staying there with Cody. I'm supposed to see her tomorrow night, Cody said. Dinner at her place. Perfect. I'll show up 30 minutes after you arrive. We'll corner her together. What if she runs? She won't. She's been controlling this situation for 8 months. She'll want to see how it plays out. The next evening, I sat in my car outside Lola's second apartment, watching Cody disappear into the building. The address was in a nice part of town, an upscale complex with security gates and underground parking. I wondered how she afforded 2 apartments on a marketing salary, then realized she probably didn't have a marketing job at all. At exactly 7:30 p.m., I walked into the building and took the elevator to the 14th floor, apartment 14C. I could hear voices through the door. Lola's laugh, Cody's deeper voice responding to something she'd said. They sounded happy, relaxed, completely unaware that their world was about to implode. I knocked. The voices stopped. Footsteps approached the door. Are you expecting someone? I heard Cody ask. No, Lola replied, confusion evident in her voice. The door opened and Lola's face went through a series of expressions so rapid they were almost cartoonish. Surprise, confusion, recognition, and finally, stark terror. Hello, Lola, I said. We need to talk. Behind her, I could see Cody standing in the living room, still holding a wine glass. His face was grim but determined. Jackson? Lola's voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at home. I should be asking you the same thing, I said, stepping into view. You told me you were in Portland for work. She told me she just got back from Portland, Cody said from the living room, to spend time with me. Lola looked back and forth between us, her face cycling through emotions as she realized her elaborate deception had finally collapsed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She looked genuinely devastated, as if she'd lost something precious. Then I remembered the 8 months of lies. Can I come in? I asked. Or would you prefer to have this conversation in the hallway where your neighbors can hear? Lola stepped aside wordlessly, and I entered what should have been a familiar apartment, but felt completely foreign. This was Lola's space with Cody. Different furniture, different artwork, different photographs on the refrigerator. A parallel universe version of the life I thought I'd been building with her. How long have you known? Lola asked, closing the door behind me. About Cody? 3 days. About you lying about your job? 3 weeks. I moved to stand next to my brother, presenting a united front. The question is, how long have you been planning this? Lola collapsed into a chair, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. It wasn't planned, not at first. Bullshit, Cody said, his voice harder than I remembered. You don't accidentally date identical twins for 8 months without knowing they're related. I knew, Lola admitted. I knew from the beginning. The simple confession hit harder than I'd expected. Despite the evidence, despite the photographs, part of me had been hoping for some explanation that would make this all a terrible misunderstanding. Why? The word came out strangled. Lola was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Because you destroyed my sister. Cody and I exchanged glances. Your sister? Emma Rodriguez, Emma Martinez Rodriguez. She changed her name back after the divorce. My blood turned to ice. Emma is your sister? Half-sister. Same father, different mothers. She was 2 years older than me, and she was the most confident, beautiful person I'd ever known. Until she met you two in college. Lola's voice grew stronger as she continued, anger replacing vulnerability. She came home for Christmas that year completely broken. She'd fallen in love with both of you, couldn't choose, and when she finally picked Jackson, Cody made her feel like she'd destroyed something sacred. Made her feel like she was the villain for being honest about her feelings. That's not what happened, Cody protested. Isn't it? She told me how you looked at her after she chose Jackson, like she was something dirty, like she'd betrayed you personally instead of making an impossible choice between two people she cared about. Lola stood up, pacing now. She transferred schools to get away from the mess you two had created, started dating older men because she was afraid of getting involved with anyone her own age, married the first guy who proposed, divorced him 2 years later when she realized she was trying to replace something she'd lost. We didn't know, I said weakly. You didn't care to know. You were so busy blaming each other and her that you never considered the damage you were doing to someone who'd been honest about her feelings from the beginning. I thought about Emma, brilliant, funny Emma who'd been caught between us and tried to handle an impossible situation with grace. We had blamed her. We'd made her feel like the problem instead of recognizing that we were the ones who'd competed for her affections, like she was a prize to be won. So you decided to get revenge, Cody said. I decided to show you what it felt like, Lola corrected. To be manipulated, to have your feelings used against you, to fall in love with someone who was lying to you every single day. But you didn't just lie to us, I said. You made us fall in love with you. Real love. That's not justice, Lola. That's cruelty. For the first time since I'd arrived, Lola's composure cracked. Tears started streaming down her face. I know, she whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. It was supposed to be simple. Date you both for a few weeks, let you find out about each other, watch you blame each other instead of me. Just like with Emma. But, Cody prompted, but I fell in love with both of you too. Lola looked back and forth between us, her voice breaking. You're the same person in so many ways, but you're also completely different. Jackson, you're artistic and spontaneous and you make me laugh until my stomach hurts. Cody, you're steady and thoughtful and you make me feel safe in a way I've never experienced. She collapsed back into the chair, sobbing now. I couldn't choose. Just like Emma couldn't choose. And I realized I'd become exactly like her, except I was the one doing the lying this time. The apartment fell silent except for Lola's crying. I looked at Cody, seeing my own confusion and pain reflected in his face. Despite everything, the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, Lola's anguish seemed genuine. She'd gotten caught in her own trap, fallen victim to the same impossible situation she'd created as revenge. The apartment, Cody said finally. How do you afford 2 apartments? I'm a freelance graphic designer, Lola said, wiping her eyes. I work mostly with online clients. I've been living off my savings and credit cards for the past few months. You're a graphic designer? I stared at her. I'm a graphic designer. I know. I researched both of you extensively before I made contact. I knew your interests, your careers, your dating history. I crafted a persona I thought would appeal to both of you. The marketing job was completely fake? Completely fake, The travel schedule let me maintain both relationships without either of you getting suspicious about my availability. Cody set down his wine glass with shaking hands. 8 months. 8 months of my life, thinking I'd found the woman I wanted to marry, and it was all a lie. Not all of it, Lola said desperately. My feelings for both of you are real. The connections we've built, the intimacy, the plans we've made, those feelings are real. But they're based on lies, I said. Everything I know about you, everything I fell in love with, how much of it is actually true? More than you'd think. The core of who I am, that's real. My sense of humor, my values, my dreams for the future. I couldn't fake those things for 8 months. But the framework, the circumstances, the way we met. Lola trailed off. All lies, Cody finished. All lies, Lola confirmed. We stood there in the wreckage of 8 months of deception. 3 people who'd fallen in love under false pretenses, each of us both victim and perpetrator in different ways. What happens now? Lola asked. Cody and I looked at each other. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I was seeing my brother clearly, not as competition, not as the person who'd stolen Emma from me, but as someone who'd been hurt by the same forces that had hurt me. Now we leave, I said, both of us, and you figure out how to live with what you've done. That's it? Lola's voice was small, lost. What did you expect? Cody asked. Did you think we'd fight over you? Did you think we'd destroy our relationship again so you could feel vindicated about Emma? I don't know what I expected anymore. I moved toward the door, then stopped. Lola, I need you to understand something. Emma didn't destroy our relationship 6 years ago. We did that ourselves, by competing instead of communicating, by making her choose instead of figuring out how to handle a difficult situation like adults. And you didn't fix anything by doing this to us. You just created more pain. But maybe, Cody added, surprising me, you helped us realize something we should have figured out years ago. Lola looked up at him hopefully. That we're stronger as brothers than we ever were as rivals, Cody continued. And that we owe Emma an apology for the way we handled things back then. I felt something shift in my chest, a tension I'd been carrying for 6 years finally starting to release. Come on, I said to Cody. Let's go get coffee and figure out how to be brothers again. Cody nodded and moved toward the door. Lola, I hope you find what you're looking for, but you won't find it by hurting people who care about you. We left Lola in her apartment full of lies and walked out into the evening air. The city looked different somehow, brighter, more full of possibility. That was brutal, Cody said as we reached the parking garage. Yeah, but necessary. Are we okay, you and me? I looked at my brother, my identical twin, the other half of my DNA, the person who'd known me longer than anyone else in the world, and realized that despite everything we'd been through, despite the years of silence and resentment, he was still family. We're okay, I said. We're going to be okay. 6 months later, Cody and I had coffee every Tuesday morning before work. We'd talked through our issues with Emma, and while we'd decided not to contact her directly, she'd built a new life and didn't need us disrupting it. We'd both learned to forgive ourselves and each other for the mistakes we'd made in college. I never saw Lola again, though I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to another city and started seeing a therapist. I hoped she found peace with what she'd done, and I hoped she learned healthier ways to process her pain. The experience taught me that revenge, no matter how justified it might seem, ultimately hurts everyone involved. Lola had set out to punish Cody and me for hurting Emma, but in the end, she'd caused more pain for everyone, including herself. But it also taught me that forgiveness, real forgiveness, can rebuild relationships you thought were permanently broken. Cody and I were closer now than we'd ever been, partly because we'd learned to communicate instead of compete, and partly because we'd survived something that could have destroyed us completely. Sometimes the worst betrayals teach you the most about who you really are and what really matters. In Lola's web of lies, Cody and I found our way back to the truth. That family, real family, is worth fighting for. And sometimes the best revenge against those who try to divide you is simply refusing to be divided. And that's how one woman's elaborate revenge plan ended up teaching two brothers the most important lesson of their lives. Lola thought she was serving justice, but instead she served Jackson and Cody exactly what they needed: a mirror to see how their past mistakes had hurt someone they cared about, and a chance to choose family over competition. Sometimes the most twisted betrayals lead to the most unexpected healing. Sometimes it takes someone trying to destroy your relationships to show you which ones are actually worth fighting for. What did you think of how Jackson and Cody handled the confrontation? Would you have been able to walk away together like they did? Or would the betrayal have been too much? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story left you as shocked as it left me, make sure you're subscribed to Truth Bombs with notifications turned on, because we expose mind-bending deceptions like this every week. And here's the thing. If you know someone who thinks they've heard every cheating story out there, share this channel with them. Trust me, they haven't heard anything like this. Also, don't forget to tell me where you're listening from. I love seeing our Truth Bombs family growing all around the world. Until next time, remember, revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but sometimes the best way to win is simply refusing to let someone else's pain become your own. I'll see you in the next Truth Bomb.